Hi, I'm Mike, and today we get a chance to come along for the ranch tour. It's something that we have on the ranch every single morning. It takes place at 8:30, but a lot of people can't make it all the way up here to Northeast Wyoming, so we invite you to come along for a little bit of a virtual tour this morning on Our Wyoming Life. Welcome to the Our Wyoming Life tour, which starts right over here at the farm store every morning at 8:30 all the way until Labor Day. Today is actually a pretty rare day that we do not have a tour, so I thought I'd do something a little bit special and bring you guys along. And you know, for everybody that can't get here or wants to experience the tour for themselves, or maybe just experience it again since you've been here before, this gives you a chance to just come along with us. We do have a little bit of a crew this morning. We've got Grace here. Jeff is going to be playing cameraman. Mackenzie and her friend Grace. So we're going to try to not confuse you guys as much. You're going to be Gracie, Mackenzie, this will be Jeff, and this will be Grace. These guys are going to be coming along with us and helping us out today as we move through and kind of give you the tour experience here on Our Wyoming Life. So typically the tour gets started with us coming over here to the farm store and finding a group of people, anywhere from one person to 30 people could possibly be coming on the tour on any given day. The people that are on the tour are usually staying in the Airbnb or staying over in our RV park. So we get started over here by kind of just talking to each other and finding out where people are from, getting names down and all that kind of good stuff. And usually we have a welcoming committee that comes over to get us started. The welcoming committee is a little late this morning. We might have got started a little late too, but here they are. These are our turkeys. They'll follow us around for a portion of the tour this morning, or as much as we let them. Sometimes it's a little hard to even talk with these guys with us. And since we start with birds, we're actually going to head over to the emus, where we always explain that Erin really likes birds. So we get started with the emus because we're going to start with the biggest birds that we've got on the ranch. And oddly enough, we go from the biggest to the smallest. But we get started over here with Forrest and Jenny. These are our emus, Forrest and Jenny. They're just about a year old. We've had them on the ranch since they were about this big. They're super friendly. They love everybody. They really like shiny stuff. And of course, they've been socialized their entire lives. Emus are the second largest bird in the world next to ostriches. Mackenzie, what's the largest bird in the world? Ostrich. There you go. And ostriches stand about 9 feet tall and can weigh up to 350 pounds. These guys will be about 7 feet tall and 150 pounds. So they're just over a year old. They haven't started laying eggs yet. Next year they'll start laying eggs. And our first goal when we get the eggs is to have ourselves a little omelet. And then we're going to try to figure out what we can do with them. We can sell the eggs. We could hatch out the eggs and sell the chicks, but we don't quite know yet. This is the beginning of our useless animal collection, I do believe. Say hi. Did you guys want to pet them?
I did.
You did? See, they're friendly. All right, let's head over to the shop and we'll get started. So what we've got here is a cow-calf operation. That means we have mom cows live on the ranch their entire lives. They have calves, and that's how the ranch makes money. In a normal cow-calf operation, you would actually make money by selling the calves at auction when they're about 6 to 8 months old. The problem with that is it doesn't allow us to control our own price. Hi, turkeys. How are you? Show off. It doesn't actually allow us to control our own price. So the big problem that I always try to explain to people is that if I had a tractor engine that blew and I needed to buy a new tractor engine, I couldn't go to the auction and say, hey, I need an extra 10 cents a pound so that I could get a new tractor engine. They would laugh you out of the place. So in January of last year, we changed how the ranch does business, and now we actually are able to set our own prices by being 100% direct to end consumer. We no longer take anything to auction. It goes from, it's born here on the ranch. If it's a boy that's born on the ranch, it goes into our feedlot program. Girls end up back into our breeding program. So what we can do now is we can raise the price of a T-bone in the farm store by 10 cents a pound, and nobody ever notices. And if they do, I can always say, hey, you want to have T-bones next year? Then we have to get this tractor fixed. One of the things that enables us to actually think outside the box like this is the fact that my wife and I were not born and raised here on the ranch. We actually worked in radio for a number of years before coming here. Erin's mom, my wife's mom, married Gilbert, who had this ranch while Erin was in college. So in 2008, they asked us to come back and help on the ranch. Gilbert had trouble getting in and out of the tractor, that kind of thing. So they asked us if we would come back, and we were basically going to feed for the winter was the original plan. We came back here to the ranch. We were actually working for Northeast Broadcasting at the time. We were managing 17 different radio stations in Wyoming, Colorado, and South Dakota. And we were living down in southern Wyoming at the time. We moved up here to Northeast Wyoming. And I learned how to drive a tractor. I figured out which end of the cow was which end you stay away from, which end you really stay away from, and sometimes they switch back and forth. And we fed the cows every single morning. We went and watched Netflix all afternoon. It was awesome. Spring rolls around, and Gilbert wasn't doing much better. The ranch was still in the same situation, so we ended up deciding to stay for the entire year. Erin didn't really know what she wanted to do. She tried a couple little jobs here and there, but didn't really like it, and eventually decided to grow a garden. And we figured out pretty quick that you can only eat so much zucchini. So we ended up going to farmer's market. And if you know Erin, took a little bit of time, but she ended up running farmer's market, and she ran it for 10 years. During that time, that's when we got started into local food. So we said we're going to go from the biggest birds on the ranch, and we're going to continue to tell you about what we do here and why it's important. But first, let's go take a look at the smallest birds on the ranch. These are the new baby chicks. They are about a week old. These ones actually we ordered from the Cackle Hatchery, and we have a bunch of different varieties of chickens in here. These will all end up going into our laying flock. I almost said herd, laying flock. And they will be a part of our ranch. They're going to give us eggs. We got about 150 chickens on the ranch that are laying, and they give us about 5 dozen eggs per day.
Can I grab one?
You can jump in there and grab one if you want to. Yeah, Grace is going to grab us a chicken, a random chicken. There we go. Which one do you have here? You don't know?
It's Puffy.
This one's got little chipmunk cheeks. Look at that.
What's his name? Simon.
This one's name is Simon. Okay, this is Simon, the puffy cheek chicken. There we go. So as you guys know, because you're watching this on YouTube, hey, Kinsey, can you chase the turkeys out of here? That's usually Jeff's job, but since he's playing cameraman, the kids get to chase the turkeys out. So as you know, because you're watching this on YouTube, we did get our start on YouTube, and it was really just kind of dumb luck. In 2017, we had started selling beef and pork at farmer's market, and we wanted to be able to sell more of it. So I made a really quick video in January of 2017. It was 4.5 minutes long. It was basically how we feed our cows. And we wanted to show people that we're really nice to our cows. We go out and we give them head scratches, we give them treats and all that kind of good stuff. And that would make people want to come buy beef and pork at farmer's market. So we put this video on YouTube. The next morning we woke up, we had 30, 50,000 views, whatever it was, 1,500 subscribers on a YouTube channel that we didn't mean to make, and nobody was local. Nobody was going to come buy a darn thing. But we did start looking at the comments, and the comments said things like, when do you milk your cows? Well, you wouldn't want to milk these cows, right, Kenzie? No, you wouldn't want to milk these cows. It would be a horrible experience. Other comments said, why don't you buy your beef at the grocery store like everybody else where no animals are harmed? And we kind of figured out at that point that we did have a unique opportunity here, and that was to show people where their food comes from, and more importantly, the families behind it. And while we do have a mantra that we want people to put a face with their food, I don't feel that that face should be a cow. I don't think you need to eat a cheeseburger and stare a cow in the face. But you can think about Grace here, who's eating a pickle pop for breakfast. Yummy. And you can think about Mackenzie, and you can think about these kids that have to, you know, buy a bike or go to summer camp or go to college, and now that puts a face to your food that actually starts to make sense. So we've continued with the YouTube thing, but one of the problems that we had, even from the very beginning, was that how do you monetize YouTube? Our first year on YouTube, we made $60 from YouTube AdSense. And while we did start selling t-shirts and stuff like that, it took a while before we realized that we actually have a product on the ranch that people all over the US can't wait to get their hands on. They want to bring a piece of the ranch home. And that started in 2019 with this one license plate right here. This is the license plate wall, and we're going to talk a little bit more about it. But in 2019, we stopped going to farmers market and we built the farm store here on the ranch. And that kind of changed how things worked. Ivan and Uliana stopped by to buy a few steaks. They were a few hundred miles out of their way, but they wanted to bring home a piece of the ranch. And that kind of opened our eyes. And that's when we started selling beef jerky online. The beef jerky was a huge hit, and it allowed us to sell our product online to people all over the world very easily. You take beef jerky, you throw it in an envelope, boom, off it goes. Ivan and Uliana gave us their license plate, which we then put on the wall, and it ended up in a video. And next thing you know, license plates come flowing in. We've got license plates from all over, all 50 states. We've got them from Germany, Dubai, Australia, New Zealand, Italy, Netherlands, all Canadian provinces. And we have a lot of really cool plates up here on the wall that we can talk about, including this one from 1944. This plate actually came out during the war effort. And if you notice, it's made of cardboard because they were trying to preserve metal during the war effort. It's actually pretty rare. A farmer in Virginia found 6 of these in his barn, sent them to us and said, you guys will take better care of them than I ever will, and we put them on the wall. The interesting part is the very next year, 1945, they went right back to metal. They figured out that if you drove through a mud puddle, your license plate fell off. Probably wasn't the most efficient thing in the world. All these license plates have a story behind them, and so a lot of people will write their stories on the back of the plate or send us a letter that goes along with it, and we do tape them to the back of the plates so that if you guys ever get tired of looking at plates and you take them down, there's a story on a lot of these, and you'll have a lot of reading to do.
I have a license plate from Emmy and Libby, and they're in the ranks, and it has their signatures on the back and hanging on my wall.
Yep, signatures, all that kind of cool stuff. It's a lot of history, and one of the great things is that when I start reading these stories that come with the license plates is the fact that everybody has a link to agriculture. There's always a common thread between each story we get, and I remember riding on a tractor when I was 5 years old with my dad or my uncle or my grandpa or my second cousin twice removed, and we're not that separated from agriculture. And it got me doing a little bit of research, and one of the things that I found out was after the war and after the Great Depression, people didn't have to worry about where their food came from very much. Food just started coming into the grocery store. Mass production was happening, all kinds of good things, right? So you're going and getting food from the grocery store, and if you don't have to worry about where your food comes from, you stop caring about where your food comes from. And at the same time, producers like us stopped talking about where your food comes from. We stopped telling consumers where their food came from, and there lies the problem. We should have been talking the whole time, because what we allowed to happen was we allowed major corporations now to control the narrative. We've got Cargill, Tyson, JBS, National Beef, and all these other companies that control our food, and those are the guys who get to tell consumers what's good and what's bad, rather than the farmer and rancher that actually produces it. So being able to tell our story is huge, and that's one thing that we really do try to convey to whether you're consumers or producers, that we want to be able to tell our story, and we want to be able to tell you guys that we're producing safe food for you all across the world. So we're going to head in here to the next barn, which is one of my favorite places on the ranch. Come on in. Jeff, you're doing great. So, this is what, no, it's okay. She can go back there. It's okay. This is what we call the sale barn. There's lots of cats in here, so this is where we lose a lot of kids, and this is exactly what happens every time we come into the sale barn here. The sale barn was built in 1932. The ranch was homesteaded back in the early 1900s by the Barkley family, and by the 1930s, they figured out they really couldn't make any money on the ranch. They were having a really hard time, and one of the problems was that they would take cattle to Gillette, which is the closest town, and they would have an auction at the railway station or wherever they had it, and then they'd get on a train and the cows would go off to Chicago for processing. And they didn't get to control their price either. So in 1932, they had their very first sale in this barn. And if you look around the barn and use your imagination a little bit, everywhere there's not concrete, there was actually bleachers throughout this entire barn. And now we have the turkeys coming back in along with the peacock. They've got backup, Jeff. So they would invite people from town to come out here and actually buy cattle. Our analogy is that now you come to the farm store and buy a T-bone. Well, back then you just came here and bought the whole dang cow. It worked out really good for the Barclays and for people in our community who could buy a cow to fatten. They could actually buy a bull for their own herd, or they could buy heifers. So it actually worked out really good. Gilbert's family actually homesteaded north of town, and they found coal underneath that ranch. The problem was the Barclays actually went into bankruptcy in the early 90s. This actually ran as a sale barn from 1932 until about 1992. And they went into bankruptcy, and Gilbert was able to buy this ranch with the proceeds from selling the ranch up north. We also have our Model T sitting here with us, and this is a great part where we come and take a look at this thing. The Model T is a 1924 Model T Ford 1-ton pickup. There's a lot of really cool stories behind it that we tell during the tour. We're going to spare you guys some of those just for time's sake, but one of the best stories about it is that it only cost $650 back in 1924, purchased from Gillette Motor Company. And that was a huge amount of money back then. But not only did you have to buy this thing, you had to learn how to drive it. Take a look inside. You actually have 3 pedals on the floor, and you have the left pedal is your high-low, so all the way down is low, all the way out is high. The far right pedal is your brake, and the middle pedal is reverse. So we tell some good stories about how that middle pedal can get you in trouble. Over this way, we'll walk by the turkeys here. This actually went along with the Model T, and it sat on the running board. This we call the precursor to the RV. It's more of a chuck wagon. I'm guessing, Jeff, we didn't need to invite the kids. We've just got birds. This was actually more of a chuck wagon, and they'd be able to stop. They had some an ice box, water, let a little dispenser here on the side. And when they were traveling in the Model T, this is how they would stop and grab a bite to eat. No drive-thrus. Definitely no McDonald's. We also have the original brands here for the ranch. The ranch brand is the A-Bar brand, and it's one of the oldest brands in Wyoming. This is a chance to talk a lot about branding and educate people about why we brand, and also the future of branding, which is actually pretty interesting if you get a chance to check it out. Maybe that's a future video. Did we lose some kids here? Ah.
Not the bottom.
All right. Now we're going to head down into the barn. Gus is always excited to see us every single morning. He comes out and yells and hoots and hollers and gets a chance to hang out with kids. Now, Gus came from a petting zoo, so this is probably the best part of his day, where he gets to get all kinds of pets and loves. But also, he gets to get some loving from Ethel over here, which is probably really why he's yelling. And we get to let these guys reunite every single morning. Come on, Ethel. Don't honk at me. Hey, go, go, go. Go, go, go. And there they go. Mackenzie, Gracie,
Yeah?
where are you guys? Did you give up on us? We're gonna feed the lambs.
Kittens.
All right.
Are they not feeding the lambs?
I don't know what they're doing. they gave up on us. All right, we are gonna let out the bottle lambs here. These are actually Gracie's lambs. And one of the highlights of the tour every single morning is the chance that people get a chance to feed these little guys, which is apparently something people don't normally get to do on a daily basis, oddly enough. So this is Cool Whip, and this is Vanilla. Vanilla Bean, sorry. Which one's your favorite, Grace?
I don't know.
You don't have a favorite?
They're hungry.
They are very hungry. They're always hungry.
Cool Whip's got a green mouth.
Really?
Yeah. She has a green mouth
From the grass?
They need a bath.
They do need a bath. Jeff and I were talking about that. You'd have to give them a bath, though.
Yeah.
Oh, Vanilla Bean won. All gone. Well, Grace is finishing up feeding there. We also have Tallow, who's our buck goat. He's hanging out over here, giving the girls a little bit of a break. They are done with him for a while. Next stop for us is the alpacas here on the tour. Grace is going to grab us a little bit of food once she gets done feeding the bottle over there. But these are our alpacas. We have 3 of them that we introduce. We have Chai, this is the white one, Latte, and Mocha. So our alpacas are actually here from Minnesota, you can tell by the accent, and they're not really super friendly. So one of the things that we ask our guests to do that are here on the tour with us is actually feed them. So they get used to new people, they get used to new smells, and they get just a little bit friendlier. All 3 of them are pregnant, they carry for 11 months, so hopefully by this time next year, we're gonna have little baby alpacas.
Me and Grace are gonna go do something. She found a kitten, like it's
Okay, go.
Sorry.
A little shy, so we will put a little bit of food in their tray also so that Mocha can come get a bite to eat. These guys get to go outside into the multi-species area. The lambs get to follow us for a little while, and we take a look at our little piggies, which are not so little anymore. Look at this giant guy right here. We've got a few pigs that are going to be going here at the end of the month, and we always like to say that every animal on the ranch really only has to have one bad day, and we prefer that bad day to happen somewhere else. So unlike Jeff or I, we have a lot of bad days on the ranch, but for us, it's most important that the animals have the best life possible while they're here. So our pigs get to hang out. They get to lay in the mud. They get to do whatever pigs do, which apparently is nothing except for eat. So that makes them happy.
This one's not eating?
Well, it's laying here on food. It's using food as a bed. Here, yeah, give it a little bit of, give it some yummies. Oh yeah, see? There, now it's eating. On this side, we've got our little pigs. These guys are about 4 months old or so, and they've got a little bit longer here on the ranch before they reach that 250, 300 pound mark that we want them to be at before it's time for them to go. So we lost Mackenzie and her friend Gracie, so now we're just down to Grace. Thanks for hanging out with us.
Didn't they find a kitten?
They found a kitten that they're gonna go do something with. I'm not exactly sure what. Turkeys are back to join us. We've got our lambs, and we head up and around, and we'll meet you guys at the chicken house.
They're like
So this is the chicken house, and one of the highlights of the chicken house is some goats that we have in here. But first, before we get to that, we do have about 150 laying hens that live in here, and they give us those 5 dozen eggs per day. The chickens that we saw in the shop, those little ones, once they get their feathers and they're big enough, they'll actually come over here to the chicken run, where right now we've got a turkey who decided to hatch out a few baby turkeys for us. We've got some ducks and some other chickens in here as well that we actually did in our incubator, I think. I'm not exactly sure where they came from. Sometimes it gets a little confusing. They'll stay in here for a couple more months. They'll learn how to go inside when it gets dark and all that kind of good stuff. And then eventually they'll just be allowed to go roam around the ranch. A few animals that we can't trust to roam around the ranch actually live just inside this door. And Grace is going to open up the door so that they can come out and say hi. Come on out. Come on, guys. First out is a little pot-bellied pig. Her name is Petunia. And then we've got Fancy and Jack and Cruella and Pepper and Waffle and Salt. And these are our goats. Again, part of the useless animal collection, but these guys actually get to go hang out in the petting zoo during the day. One of the highlights, of course, is Jack, who is actually a fainting goat. They have a chemical in their brain that actually, when they get scared or nervous or anything like that, they will actually fall over. If you've never seen fainting goats, just go on YouTube and search for fainting goats. They are originally raised in the Middle East. And one of the purposes was to be in with herds of goats or sheep, and if a predator came along, these guys would actually faint, fall over, the predator would get them, and the rest of your herd would run off to safety. We don't tell them that little secret, though. Another really cool feature of the goat pen is the webcam. We always tell people that you can come and visit the goats whenever you would like. New baby goats are on the way before too long here, and you can watch online and see what the goats are up to at our website, ourwyominglife.com. One of Jeff's jobs, and I had to take the camera back, but one of Jeff's jobs is when he comes along on the tour, he gets eggs for us and shows people the eggs that we get every single day. But also he has to feed the goats here because the goats think that they're going to the petting zoo every time we leave. So Jeff usually grabs a few scoops of hay and throws it in and makes sure that the goats are distracted so that we can escape. They actually like to climb right up into the feeder. Yeah, they probably did learn that from Fancy. Oh, and he just fell out of the feeder, but that's okay. So the feeder was actually given to us by a subscriber who came to visit and dropped off the feeder. So thank you very much to Christy and Jason for that. The goats are getting plenty use out of it. We're gonna sneak on out of here while we can. And the goats are distracted. Yeah, they're okay. Do you want to grab eggs? Jeff is going to grab us some eggs. And while we're out here, we can talk about a few interesting things that we've heard on the tour. One of them has to do with eggs. And we actually had a fellow on the tour one year that, not quite sure if he was joking, but we have some green eggs. And he said, I know where the green eggs come from. It's when a chicken mates with a duck, which isn't true, but I'm not quite sure if he believed it or not. We also had a lady one time that told her son that deer, which were out here at the time, grow up to be elk, which is always interesting. And we've actually had people ask us if any other animals lay eggs on the ranch besides the chickens. Apparently some of the cows or sheep or something. So it's always an interesting trip around because it is all about educating people and hopefully letting people leave the ranch just a little bit smarter than when they came.
That chicken's got lots of fun.
And here comes Jeff with the eggs. Not quite 5 dozen this morning. 5 dozen is usually about a full bucket, but throughout the day we end up getting a whole lot more. Good job. You didn't even break one of them.
No, not one.
All right, let's keep going with the tour. It's at this point that we start heading over towards the gardens, and I always like to start out by saying that when we did farmers market, one of the greatest parts about farmers market was at the end of every single market, we would buy back, Erin would buy back the produce that hadn't sold from other farmers and ranchers, and a lot of times that produce then would go to the soup kitchen or the Council of Community Services. When we stopped going to farmers market, I think that portion of our business was missing. And so in 2019, Erin and her friend Megan started a nonprofit that's called the Edible Prairie Project. And the goal of the Edible Prairie Project is to get local food in the hands of low-income families in our community. And they do that in a number of different ways. But right now, 60% of what's grown here on the ranch actually goes into the Edible Prairie Project. This giant fence here is not to keep zucchini in, but to keep deer out, thanks to Beckart fencing. Our first stop here is what sometimes I have to explain to the kids. This is a newspaper box, and newspapers were like the internet on paper, and they printed it every day. The internet, crazy, right? We actually got a bunch of these from the Rapid City Journal, and they get repainted, and we put them in parks in town, and we stock them full of non-perishable food items. And if you've ever heard of the Take a Book, Leave a Book program, it's the same thing except for macaroni and cheese. These things are essential for a lot of families in town that can just walk up to any park, open up the door, grab themselves something to eat. It's a great program that EPP runs. It's called the Free Little Pantry program. Our growing season here is pretty dang short. We've got our last frost in May, first frost will be in September. So a lot of the gardens, the outdoor gardens, end up having to grow fast, and they get harvested fast. And it's a lot of work for Erin and Carrie and everybody involved to keep these gardens going the way they are. Some of the other programs that EPP runs includes a free, what is it called? Weekend food bags for kids, which is all about making sure that kids have food for the weekend. We do that with the Boys and Girls Club, and we end up giving bags of food. I think last time we packed it was 285 bags to kids on Fridays as they leave the Boys and Girls Club for the weekend. And Erin also runs a program that is a kind of like a CSA, a community supported agriculture. It's actually a food basket where a bunch of the food in that basket comes directly from local gardens and local beef growers or yak or lamb or whatever it may be for protein in those baskets as well. And those are free for SNAP and WIC recipients that can come pick them up in town. Over here we take a look at our high tunnels. And the high tunnels are really what kind of save our bacon, so to speak. These things allow us to grow early and have produce as early as possible. I have to sneeze. Excuse me. Jeez. This is what we call our winter high tunnel. Erin gets this planted sometimes as early as March, and she gets a lot of cold weather crops going on in here. We've got chard and kale, which you can't kill with a blowtorch. Spinach and other stuff starts in here, but right now what's happening is it's actually rotating more into a summer high tunnel, where we've got sweet potatoes and a bunch of other stuff that's rotating in here as well, including carrots and chives and different lettuce and all kinds of crazy stuff. Do you guys like vegetables? Yeah? Well, that's good. In between the two high tunnels, we actually created a little bit of a microclimate. This is due probably to the reflection off the high tunnels, but we can grow stuff in here that we've had a lot of trouble growing in the past, including strawberries, asparagus, ginger, and garlic right here in this little area. One of Grace's jobs is to pick strawberries every day, and I can tell you, I don't know how many she picks, but I know like 4 of them make it back to the house. So, and then this is the tomato high tunnel. The tomato high tunnel has 300 tomato plants in it, a bunch of different varieties because you never know what's going to do good one year to the next. We've got a few that are actually getting burned by the sun because it is so hot in here sometimes with the sun coming in. We have to keep a lot of ventilation happening. So many tomatoes will give us huge harvests of tomatoes. Our largest harvest ever taken out of here was 600 pounds in one day. And since we have so many tomatoes, we've actually started making salsa. And Erin and Carrie make a ton of salsa. We used to just grow jalapenos, is about as hot as we got. But now, if you take a look at some of our peppers here, we actually get scorpion peppers, habaneros, I don't even know the rest of it. There's really Carolina Reapers. There's all kinds of really crazy peppers in here because everybody wants salsa hotter and hotter and hotter. It's a quick way to punish yourself, I think. One of our ultimate goals, I think, here on the ranch, as we continue to grow, because this is where we always get questions about, what are you guys going to do in the future? And what we'd really like to do is build a commercial kitchen so that we can offer things like our salsa all across the United States and be able to ship it everywhere. But that's the next step. Quite a big investment there, and really, there's not a whole lot of us here on the ranch. We don't like to have much downtime, but we've got myself and Erin, and of course Jeff, who volunteers, and Carrie are the only real employees here on the ranch. So it's a lot of work for 4 of us to do, but it's definitely worth it. We're gonna head back up towards the farm store as we get ready to wrap things up. We're gonna talk about our fire truck really quick, and then we'll be able to cut you guys loose. You can come in and do a little shopping in the farm store.
not funny.
So one of the really cool things about having a YouTube channel and stuff that actually helps out our industry and our community and everything else is the fact that we get to work with companies like Hustler Equipment right here behind me. All this equipment here was sent to us by Hustler Equipment, and our job is to test it and try to break it and see what off-the-wall ideas we can come up with for how to use it. This bin thing here, we haven't really made a video about it yet, but it's actually used to shoot straw into a building, let's say, or a barn or something like that. But really, it was kind of a one-trick pony, and we got to thinking about different things we can do with it. And now we're using it to actually spread compost, and we'll have a video coming out about that hopefully before too long. So next stop is the fire truck, which is always a crowd pleaser. This is our fire truck. It's a 1955 Howe Fire Cruiser. Came from a little tiny town up in Montana called Opheim, a town of about 235 people last time I checked. This was their fire truck from 1955 until just after 9/11, and they got some Homeland Security money, and they were able to, Jeff was setting down the eggs, and they were able to buy a new fire truck. A friend of ours actually went to school up there, went back in 2015. And saw this, and I met him through the fire truck, and he went up there for a class reunion and decided to buy it. And then he took it back home where he lives in Billings, and his wife said, no, you don't get a fire truck. But he remembered it as a kid. I get it. I mean, it was kind of a nostalgic thing. But we ended up buying the fire truck from him and bringing it down here to the ranch where everything actually works on it. It has 6,000 original miles, and we've actually used it at fires here on the ranch. We've had grass fires that we've had to stage out for with the fire truck, and it actually helped put out a fire at the chicken house one year. I did get a hold of the old fire chief who was up there in the 60s and the 70s, and he did tell us some really cool stories about the fire trucks, which we love to share on the tour. But the one that always interests me is the fact that the key is soldered in the ignition, and that's because back in the 50s and 60s and 70s, whenever it happened, firefighters used to keep on taking the key home at the end of their shift, and they'd get a call, nobody knew where the key was to the fire truck. So he finally got tired of that and soldered it right in.
That was just
Yeah.
the OFDs.
OFD, that's Opheim Fire Department. You want to see? Look at that. Opheim Fire Department. Pretty cool, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you put that magnet on it?
So we tell a lot more stories as we go around on the tour. Obviously, you know, we don't want to make an hour-long video here for you guys, but it is a lot of fun to bring people on the tour with us every single day and kind of show people where their food comes from and why we're here and what makes us different and what makes us important. I always end every tour by saying, because we have people that are RVers and they're travelers and that kind of stuff, I always like to end every tour by saying that every single barbed wire fence you drive by, every single farm or ranch has a story, much like ours, but completely different. But our main theme is that we want to provide food that's safe for the entire country, and that's our goal. At the same time, we want to provide for our own families while we're providing for yours. So thank you for coming along with us on the tour this morning. Obviously, if you were here in person, there'd be a lot more to it, but I guess that gives you a reason to come up and visit, right? So thank you very much for hanging out with us. I do appreciate it. Make sure you subscribe, follow along as we explore the ranch life and escape the ordinary. Grace, you got anything to add?
No.
Can you say thank you for coming along?
Thanks for coming along.
There we go. Thank you guys. We'll see you next time right here on Our Wyoming Life.
Thought we were going to check in on the farm store.
That's right. We should probably go check it on the farm store. So one last little thing that we do is at the end of every single tour, we do have people come back through the farm store. We call it exiting through the gift shop, right, Grace? Okay, so we do that, and we'll take a quick look inside the farm store for you guys. I know you guys can't, buy anything, but you can go online to ourwyominglife.com and check out a lot of the stuff that's in the farm store here and get it home for yourself if you bring home a piece of the ranch. There's the jerky. The lights aren't on, but there's the jerky. And honey, that's directly from the ranch. Creamed honey, which is about the best stuff ever. So, alrighty guys, we'll cut you loose. Thanks for hanging out with us. We'll see you next time.